Hello, this is a short video about using the selected points with the CorePT software. And to do that, we're going to take this example which shows a potentially typical pressure testing session. We can see here that there's a little cyan or light blue donut at the very left hand side. This is the left selected point. And at the right hand side we have this yellow donut, which is the right selected point. We can see that this information about this left and right selected points are given by our corresponding elements of the status bar, of the navigation status bar here, where we can see the cyan side. It tells me that this value has a log value of 1, a given pressure, a temperature, and a time. This, for example, is the first logged value of this session. The yellow side, the right selected one, shows us the log ID of the last logged point and its pressure, its temperature, and the time at which that value was taken. So we can see that this session shows that there's 47 logs. That logged value has been taken of pressure, temperature, and time for the duration of this. Now, what we are going to do is to move this left selected point. At the moment it's at 1. We can move it elsewhere by simply pointing to a part of the screen. And what then happens is that when I did a left click there, and this moves the left selected point. So I can change the left selected point, and we can see the associated information is changing as I click. That when I left click on the screen, is what happens is that the selected point goes to the nearest, sort of snaps to the nearest logged point that's been saved to the database. And I can do that by using the left button. I can also move this left selected points by using these selected points navigation control. I can go forward one, which will snap from log 13 to log 14 at the next selected point, or I can go back to 13, or I can go to the very left hand side, the very earliest of the left selected points, which is at log 1. And similarly I can do the same for the right click. I can go left one, which takes me to 32, back forward to 33, and right to the end. So I can use these navigation controls to move the selected points to where I want on the screen. Now the information that's in this central bar here is important. It shows us the information relative to the left and the right selected points. For example, if I left click here and right click here, we can see that this value, or these values in here, shows the change between the left point and the right point. This left point has a pressure of 10,199 psi, while the right one has a pressure of 10,172. And if we take the difference between 10,199 and 10,172, we see that there is a drop of 27 psi from this point to that point. We can also see is from the temperature that there was a change from 25.2 centigrade to 25.3, a change of +1 degree C. So these two values here shows the difference between the left selected point and the right selected point. This value here gives us the elapsed duration between the left point and the right point. So for example, this left point was logged at 8:49.50, while the right one was done at 8:53.50, which is exactly 4 minutes. This MX value that we see here gives us the maximum value between 2 points. So it tells us the maximum value between that point there and that point there is 10,199. Well, in 10,199 is this left hand side value, and if I scroll through I'll see that that in fact was the highest value between the left and the right points. notice that when I get too close to the right point from the left side, is that clicking this move forward one doesn't do anything, because I can't have the left and the right points being in the same place. They have to be different, and the left point must always be preceding or to the left of the right point. So I can, for example, do this quite happily, but if I move the right point to the left, it can only get as close as one log difference. Log 23 to the left, log 24. And if I try and put the left point to the right of the yellow marker, it won't go, and we get a message up here reminding us of that. So sometimes when we're using these left and right points, if we're just pointing to it, then we might have to move the other point. For example, here, if I want to move this point to there, if I want to swap these over, then I have to move the right point first, then the left point, rather than the other way around. So a little bit of common sense here in using these. Notice that I can go to the extrema of the log points. For example, this double right arrow click for the right point. If I click it, it takes me to the most rightmost log value, which is 46 in this case, and that one, as we noted earlier, goes to the very first one. I can also just simply click in this area to the left of the graph, and that left selected point will go to the first value. Similarly, if I want to click into here with the right mouse button, as it moves that as well. So different ways of moving that. Now, some of you may notice that we have a red marker, a red donut here. Now, what that indicates is when we start logging values. The CorePT software, we can pause and restart logging when we want to. And if I was to restart just now on this, then it would wait. We don't log immediately. There is a gap. It takes us to a convenient time period, but we can see that there is a new point being given. It's now gone up to 47 from 46, and that tells us when logging was restarted. So these red marks are really for tell us when logging was started or restarted. In this case, restarted at the beginning here when it was first started. Now let me left click here and right click here. So we're looking at this movement in the pressure graph. And we can see here that that is 0 psi, the right hand side is psi. The difference is they're both 0 psi left and right, but notice as it tells us the maximum value is 1849. And I can confirm that by watching the value of this left selected point. By inspection we can see that the highest value between this point and this point is there. So if we go forward with our left point one at a time, see that the right hand value, the left hand value is now 1849, which in fact is the maximum. So just to reinforce, as I mentioned before, is that this MX stands for maximum, and it's the maximum value between 2 points. So if I click here, for example, we can see that the maximum is now going to be lower than before because it's now at that point there. So there's our maximum values. What I can also do with points is here, as if I want to go here, I can double click this, and I can say is max value in, we'll call it blip basically a blip in values here. We'll call it a blip or hump, and OK. And although we see nothing happening there yet, if I leave this a bit longer and I'd move, if I basically move elsewhere, then I can see a new icon appearing on the graph, and that indicates is that we have a comment. And if I'm to double click, if I double click somewhere on this graph near to that point, and it comes up with the comment that I had. So I can leave comments. I'm going to cancel that just now. I can also use these plus and minus values for the zooming. If I can zoom in, or I can zoom out. Zooming out always brings me the full picture from the extreme left to the extreme right, while zooming in allows me to focus on just a narrow or limited range of the actual pressure. What I'm going to do is to select. I actually have a test within here, just the one test, and I'm going to manually look to assign 2 points that meet these conditions for a test. And I'm going to say note this is to do with JSA, and I've already had to set up JSA stuff, but I'm going to ignore that for this video. So I'm just going to say no. And I'm going to pause the video now and complete this information. And we can see here that that test that I selected has certain parameters that are associated with it. That tells us the name of the test or the description of the test. That tells us the test pressure, the maximum test pressure, the minimum test pressure, the maximum pressure drop, and the duration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click 2 points on here. You can see that I've picked 3 minutes, which is correct. And also notice that when I do that, this information about the selected test goes green. That means is that this would be, these 2 points would meet the conditions. If I was to go back one, you can see now is that the duration would change because it's a 3 minute test and it's gone to 3:30, and also as well that this pressure here, the pressure drop is too much. It's meant to be 15, but then 15 maximum, but here in fact it's already 27. So if I look at this, I can see that by using these navigation buttons for selected points, I can quickly zoom in or hone in on the points I want for an assignment. So if I now click assign 2 point test, then what I've got is I get an assignment form coming up. And here we can see is I've got 25, that's the log ID of the right hand side, see that there, and it's going back one step at a time. 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19. 19, which is the number here. Because clearly each of these periods is 30 seconds, and the values at the bottom here show the pressure difference between each successive step. So if I had longer periods here, it may be that I want to look every 2 steps. So if I do that, press 2 and change step, we can see 25, 23, 21 and 19. So this allows us to examine at different times the change in the pressure, so we can get a better idea of how the improving trends is going. I'm going to accept the improving trends though. That really was, in a sense, I'll go back to 1. I'm quite happy with the 1 there. That tells me everything I need to know. I'm going to accept the improving trends and save the assignment. So I've saved the assignment, and when I do that, what I notice is that I've now got markers for the start of the assignment, the 2 point test assignment, and the end. So one's basically a dark cyan or blue, and one's a dark gold or dark yellow, as a gold or a dark yellow. So I can see the assignments here. And of course, naturally, as before, if I want, I can even put in and just say during manual assignment Well, that's just a short rundown on some of the issues that we can meet when we're looking at selected points. So hopefully you've learned something from this video. Thank you for your time.